Okay, so let's continue with our seventh question. Now, seventh question is basically print month by month revenue. Okay. Now, this helps us understand whether hotel revenue is improving, declining, or fluctuating over time. So basically, how much revenue was realized month by month. That's what we have to find. Okay. So yeah, but before calculating monthly revenue, we first need to make sure our booking data contains a proper month identifier that we can use for grouping. So first, let's inspect the data dimension table, that is df date dot head. And so we get the table here, 3 rows. I think I don't need to explain now the code. A df data head is basically shows the first 5 rows, but if we have mentioned how many rows we want, we get the 3 rows only. Like it is this parenthesis is for mentioning. If we keep it empty, it returns 5 rows. But if we mention exactly how many rows we want, then it returns that many rows. Okay. Yeah. So as you can see, this data set contains 4 important fields. A date field, which represents the actual calendar date. Then MMMYY column, which represents the month and year, and week number, which identifies the week, and day type, which tells us whether the date falls on weekday or weekend. So for this particular question, the column we ultimately need is MMMYY because we want to calculate revenue month by month. Second step is to check which month exists. So df date bracket mmyy dot unique. So why we check normally? It's because before starting the analysis, I want to know exactly which months are available in this data set. So unique returns every distinct value only once. And here we can see 3 months, right? May 2022, June 2022, and July 2022. So now we know that our revenue trend will cover these 3 months. Let's inspect the booking data. Okay. So we write the code df booking all dot head. Now this data set contains a booking transaction along with the revenue realized. So we already have the financial metric required for the analysis. Okay. So when we do the df dot head, we get revenue realized. So we already have this column. So however, the booking table does not yet contain a convenient triple M double Y month field, right? This information exists in the date dimension table, which is here. So once again, we need to connect these data sets. So that's why we do df date dot info. We write this code. So before merging data sets, I'm using info because it's an important validation step because a merge flow most reliably when the two joining columns use compatible data types. Now you see the output shows that the date column is currently stored in an object. Now in pandas, object often means the values are being treated like a text rather than actual dates. So although something like 01 May 2022, which we see here, okay, in the date column, I'm sorry, yeah. So it looks like a date to us, but Python may still be treating this as a string, okay? So that's why from info we get that knowledge of the data type. So why does this date type matter? This becomes important because our booking dataset also contains check-in date, right? So we already have check-in date here. So if one field is stored as text and another is stored as proper datetime value, matching them can create problems, obviously, right? So before joining the dataset, I want both the columns to represent actual dates. So then the step is to convert the date dimension to datetime. So here I have used pandas function pd.toDateTime. This function converts a value in which the date column from text-like objects into pandas proper datetime format. So I assign the result back to the same column and then I use parentheses. In parentheses we use the head 3 to confirm that the transformation worked. So now let's check. So here, as you can see, we have made a new data frame. Why? Because we stored, because we wanted to change the date type of the date in the dimension table, which is df date head. Okay. So we created a df date new data frame where we made those changes. PD to that to date time is a function which we use for that. Okay. So once date time is converted, we again go df bookings all.info. We check the info of this point and then we check the check-in date. And you see this is also an object. Now, before merging, I need to convert this field as well. So what I do is again, I use this formula where I again create a new data frame of check-in date is equal to pd to date time, and then same way which I have done for date. And that's how we get the date check-in date converted into proper date time format from object format or object data type. And then we do the merge function. So we use the final data set that is df bookings that all is equal to pd merge df booking all df date and left on is equal to check on date, right on is equal to date. Okay. Now here, as you can see, mm, okay. So you see, I am applying, as you can see, pd dot merge, right? So basically we are merging. Mm, just a minute. So now that like the date fields are compatible, right? I can merge the two data set, and that's why I'm using the code to merge it. Now, since the column names are different, the booking table uses a column called check-in date, while the date dimension table uses a column called date. I use like left on is equal to check-in date here, as you can see. We have used left on is equal to check-in date and right on is equal to date. Now this tells Pandas to match every booking check-in date with the corresponding date in our date dimension. Once the merge is complete, our booking records now contain additional calendar information, including MMMYY, week number, and date type. Perfect. So, step 9 is to calculate revenue month by month, right? Step 9 is to calculate revenue month by month, and yeah. This is a code, dear booking at all dot group by month, and revenue realized dot sum. Now you see, group by, this tells pandas to divide all booking transactions according to their month, right? So May bookings from one group, June another, and July another. Next, you see revenue realized. This tells pandas that within each month, the metric I'm interested in is realized revenue. And finally, dot sum is, I use a sum because revenue is an additive metric. I want to add together all realized revenue generated by bookings within each month, right? So as you can see, May we have around 408.38 million. Then June we have around 377 million, and July we have around 389 million. So May generated the highest realized revenue among the 3 months. June recorded the lowest revenue, while July recorded somewhat compared with June. So this gives us a simple month-over-month picture of financial performance. From May to June, realized revenue declined. Then from June to July, revenue increased again, although it remains slightly below May. However, this analysis only tells us what changed over time. It doesn't tell us why. So to investigate the reason behind June decline, we could compare factors such as occupancy, booking volume, cancellations, city performance, room mix, or weekday versus weekend patterns. Okay, so let's summarize what we have covered in this question. So our business question, as you can see, was print month by month revenue. That means how much revenue was realized month by month. So first we inspected the date dimension using head, okay, and then we used the unique function to confirm that our dataset contained May, June, and July. Then before merging, we checked the data types using info, okay. So then what we did is we used another data frame, that is the booking all. We see that head, okay. So yeah, before merging, we checked data types using info. We discovered that our date fields were stored as objects, so we converted them using pd.toDateTime function. And yeah, once the dates were compatible, we used pd.merge to merge the two columns with left on check-in date and right on date to bring month information into our booking data set. And finally, we use group by month over month for revenue realized, and we use the sum function because it's an additive function. Yep. So yeah, I think it's very, very clear now what we did. So you see, the broader analytical lesson which I learned from this is that time-based analysis depends heavily on clean and correctly interpreted date fields. So before analyzing trends, we first need to make sure Python understands our date correctly. So yeah, I hope you learned something from this. So the main Python concepts covered were head, parenthesis, unique function, info function, pd.toDateTime, pd.merge, left on, right on, group by, and sum. So yeah, I hope you learned something from this. Thank you so much for watching, guys.